The salt and water make up one of the most picturesque corners of Andalusia, the Bahía de Cádiz Natural Park. The changing landscape, the different habitats, and the diverse fauna have accompanied man since the beginning of time. Around this large wetland, that is the bay, a number of lagoons are distributed strategically. The rainy season converts these wetlands into areas of high ecological value. Numerous species of waterfowl, reptiles, and amphibians largely owe their continued existence to them. The proximity of the Bahía de Cádiz Natural Park to the Strait of Gibraltar has always influenced the ongoing development and transformation of this natural area. The different stages of history have carved their mark and have shaped the delicate balance of this unique landscape. Here, man and wildlife have always lived in continual adaptation, governed by the changes produced by man himself, in addition to those rigorously imposed by nature. The varied ecosystems and its strategic geographic location convert this natural enclave into a unique area for numerous species of birds. Those that cross the Gibraltar Strait pass through here, the ones that come from Doñana, and those coming from Central and Northern Europe. Many of these alternate between the marsh and a large group of lagoons, all of them included in the Red de Reservas Naturales de Andalucía. The Medina Lagoon, which covers 120 hectares and has a depth that can exceed 2 meters, is the largest of them all. This outstanding wetland never dries out completely. When Doñana faces periods of severe drought, many birds find here the conditions necessary for survival. At times, over 10,000 birds have been counted, including the crested coot, the grebe, and the very scarce white-headed duck. This highlights the importance of this wetland for the variety of aquatic birds. Many of these birds maintain a constant coming and going almost daily. The celestial highways steer the birds to the large water labyrinth of the marshes of the Bahía de Cádiz Natural Park. The whole area of the park, including the natural reserves of the island of Trocadero, the marshes of Sancti Petri, and the natural monument Punta del Boquerón, are classified as a spa zone, special protection area for birds, and are included in the list of wetlands of international importance of the Ramsar Convention. Although the birds have become accustomed to living surrounded by highways, roads, and buildings, we should bear in mind the fragility of this protected area. A notable feature of the natural park of the bay, making it different from other parks, is its integration beside a major built-up area, which also thrives as a major industrial centre. Its 10,522 hectares are surrounded by the cities of Cadiz, Chiclana, El Puerto de Santa Maria, Puerto Real and San Fernando. Sport and inshore fishing, along with traditional shell fishing, is significantly linked to the local economy and is so ingrained that it has grown to become a way of life. Currently, these activities are regulated and subject to specific licenses that guarantee the continuity and their proper usage. The rains in recent months have revived many ponds and lagoons around the natural park. Reptiles, amphibians and invertebrates have appeared as if by magic. Amongst them, the marbled newt, the Spanish newt, and the Mediterranean tree frog. One of the strangest creatures that appear in these waters is the Triops cangriformis. The fossil records show that the ancestors of this small crustacean already existed in the Triassic. They have been around for more than 250 million years without hardly evolving. Today, it is considered as the oldest living animal species on Earth. Nature creates roads where there are none. The water conducted by the clouds has awakened Heli and Montiano. Both lagoons make up the Endorique complex of Chiclana de la Frontera. Like a glittering oasis in the midst of cropland and grassland, Heli appears. Lapwings, ducks, blackstalks, together with abundant coots, are just some of the many and varied species of birds that come and live here. A short distance away, discreetly tucked away in the mountains that surround it, appears Montiano. Unlike Heli, which rarely dries completely, this lagoon usually disappears at the beginning or in midsummer. Although finding another nearby wetland is not usually a problem for the birds. Even less so if only a few miles away there is another equally interesting wetland. We refer to the Endorique complex of Puerta de Santa Maria. The abundant reeds that give the name to Juncosa give shelter to gallinules, stilts and grebes, and also to different species of ducks and herons. Due to its small size and low volume of water, this lagoon is usually the first of the three to dry up. In Salada and Chica, the predominant vegetation is tares, reeds and rushes. Its waters, without much vegetation, allow a better observation of the birds. And this detail has not escaped the dark mind of those who patrol patiently, waiting for lunch to fly in. So the best thing to do is to hide and wait. Possibly birds like these were the first to discover the wealth and abundant resources of the natural park of the Bahia and its surroundings. And it's probably fair to say that man did not take long to learn from them. The abundance and diversity of marine life has meant that traditional fishing and shellfish fishing have been throughout history some of the most outstanding activities of the area. The Junta de Andalucia has been studying and researching the breeding of those species of fish that can be more profitable and productive for their implementation in new fish farming techniques. Groupers, croakers and snappers are among the species used for this purpose. Fishing for species reared and fattened in marshes is an inherited tradition. The high salinity conditions of marshes and the natural food that the fish feed on give rise to catches of a high gastronomic value. At high tide, the gates of the salt marshes are opened up, and the young fish come in with the tide into the marshes. Here they feed on plankton, insect, larvae, and Artemia salina. This tiny crustacean, a little more than a centimetre in length, is also the food of different species of birds, including the flamingo. Covering an age span from 1 to 2 years, the small fry have grown fat enough to become adult fish. Each fall, the despesque takes place. This popular form of fishing consists in emptying the water of the marshes and catching the fish that are trapped in them. Mullet, sole, sea bass and gilt-head bream are the main fish caught commercially. For those birds sharp enough and quick to move off the mark, today is a great day. The food is easier to find and some are very clear about size. Yes, it does matter. With so much competition, the best thing is to disappear with the loot. But the water from the marshes also disappears, but not due to periods of drought. The receding water at low tide is always well received by shorebirds. Sandpipers, godwits and plovers all have beaks adapted to find and capture food in the thick, sticky mud. Here, everything and nothing is shared. Each species occupies its particular area. The race in search of food has just begun. Each species using hunting techniques tailored to their physical and morphological characteristics. The flamingos have beaks with sheets or filaments that act as a filter, similar to the blue whale. In this way, they can separate the food from the water without swallowing a single drop of it. The slender-billed gull prefers to probe the bottom of the mud with its peculiar dance to bring the food up to the surface. The curlew, on the other hand, likes its food very clean. First rinsing the crab and then savouring this delicious seafood. With so much competition, every corner has to be investigated, and that is something the turnstones are very familiar with. Herons and egrets use their beaks like a harpoon. A precision strike and fishing is assured. But without a shadow of doubt, one of the most spectacular fishing techniques offered by a bird is that of the osprey. The Queen of the Marshes has recently arrived from Central Europe to spend the winter here. It is still quite weak and tired due to the wear and tear from its long journey. If it doesn't catch anything soon, it won't have any strength left to try again. It will die from exhaustion and starvation. Maybe this is its last chance. But today its destiny is another. Once again it has come out victorious in the day-by-day survival of life and death. Taking its lunch away to a quiet place, away from the harassment of yellow-legged gulls, will now be a new challenge. The avocets and stilts, witnessing what was going on, resumed their work looking for food. Not far from here, another group of stilts have chosen to leave the salty area. The Commissario Lagoon is a garden full of life, both for the local avifauna and for migratory birds. From the air, the birds fly in as if bewitched by the reflection of an expanse of borrowed water. This lake, together with El Taraje and San Antonio, make up the Endorique complex of Puerto Real. But the birds are not the only ones that depend on the wetlands. Under the ground, the beating of hearts has begun. After 56 days of isolated incubation, the miracle has just taken place. A new generation of small European pond turtles is about to arrive. The European pond turtle is one of our most endangered reptiles. Their populations have disappeared as such, specimens being relegated to scattered individuals. Private collectors, the alteration and destruction of their habitat, and competition from introduced exotic species are leading them to the edge of extinction. Fortunately for our little yellow-dressed pond turtle, the royal heron today has decided to return to the restless waters of the vast marshes. Fish is on the menu today. The footprint of the salt marshes goes beyond the landscape. It is present in the veins and the memory of its inhabitants. Back in the days before the Phoenicians, thanks to tuna fishing and its subsequent conservation, man developed the use of salt that led to the emergence of the salt industry. The landscape was modified, and a network of channels and ponds was created. A system based on gates allows water to pass from the channels to the marshes in a controlled manner. After, they pass on to the evaporator until they finally end up at the crystallizers where, thanks to the evaporation effect, the precious salt is obtained. Such is the adaptation of the fauna of these habitats that each year avocets, plovers and little terns select it as their breeding habitat. There has been the case that soon after man has abandoned a salt extraction area, the breeding colonies of these birds has also gone with him. Our journey brings us to the town of Jerez de la Frontera, near Medina Sidonia. At dawn, the singing of waterfowl betray the presence of a nearby wetland. Las Canteras and El Tejon appear as two small lagoons where birds are concentrated around the water each season, taking advantage of waters that are already sentenced by the arrival of long hours of sunshine. For the inhabitants of wetlands, the arrival of spring does not just perpetuate the species. It also marks the beginning of a frantic race in which time is short. Within months, the water will be taken away by the same sky that sent it some time ago. Meanwhile, in the natural park of the bay, it's siesta time, and many of the birds take advantage to rest from the rapid pace set by the tidal cycles. In the Bahia, there are a number of factors that influence it in almost all aspects. The topography of the Strait of Gibraltar and nearby mountains enables the warm easterly wind that moves from east to west to mark the life of this area, although the westerly wind is also remarkably damp. Over 3,000 hours of sunshine a year make this place one of the sunniest in Europe. The intertidal areas take us to the kingdom of mud. These places are very interesting from an ecological standpoint. Under the silt, a countless legion of curious beings live. These are the prisoners of the mud, creatures dependent on the moon and tides. many of them quite unknown, others more popular, perhaps because they are often seen on a plate. Bivalves, clams, minhoca crabs and gusana worms are just some of the inhabitants of a place where life at first glance seems highly unlikely. The boca, or fiddler crab, is a specialist on feeding on small microorganisms that it gets by filtering the fine substrates of mud and sand. Gastronomically, boca de la isla is prized for its taste. These crabs have their larger claw removed and are then released again. They eventually regenerate a new one. Although our good friend suspiciously seems unwilling to lend us his. Our tour of the Bahía de Cádiz Natural Park allows us to admire important areas of marshland, such as the Toruños in El Puerto de Santa Maria, the island of Trocadero in Puerto Real, and Sancti Petri in Chiclana. Spoonbills, herons, egrets, and even the endangered black stork, at certain times of the year, occupy these open spaces where the vegetation is hardly over a meter high. Scattered across the landscape, refusing to disappear in the ages that left them behind, appear tide mills, like the river Arioan, and the salt houses of Dolores or El Rubial, or the fishing village of Sancti Petri, abandoned back in the 1970s. The sea, being a natural border of Cadiz, has always been under surveillance throughout history. A line of coastal forts, batteries, bastions, forts and castles prove it. Urrutia's battery and the fort of Sancti Petri defended the mouth of the channel that gives it its name. These channels are the veins of the marshes and water their blood. The longest channel is that of Sancti Petri, which is 18 kilometers long. Also, those of the river San Pedro, Suraki, River Areo, Carboneros and Trocadero also stand out. Their mission and responsibility is maintaining the high biodiversity of the environment. These channels and return paths connect with beaches of fine white sand, like those of La Playa de Levante, Camposoto or Punto del Boquerón. The park vegetation is distributed by strata and plants that can best support the saline waters. Sapines and salicornia stand out amongst an innumerable number of plants. Some grow well into the sea border, as is the case of the cordgrass Spartina maritima. The coastal dunes, always moving forward, forcing the planting of Pinus piña trees to act as plant barriers, to prevent the excessive progress of the dunes. The pine forest of Algaida in Toruños and the one at Coto de la Isleta in Sancti Petri are the most representative. The pine forests, shrubs and bushes hide one of the most amazing natural treasures. We refer to the chameleon. This ground lion, as its name suggests at source, is the king of costume in a land of great carnival tradition. The only representative of its kind in Europe, here it is at its last and best preserved strongholds. It is good to know that it is an endangered species and is protected by law. It is totally harmless to humans and does not keep well in captivity. At an ornithological level, the Bahía de Cádiz Natural Park at the present time is one of the most important natural reserves in Europe. More than 90,000 birds belonging to 68 different non-passerine species have been censused. About 3,000 pairs of 12 different species nest in it. The little tern is one of them. Their nests as such do not exist, since they deposit their eggs directly on the ground. This makes them very vulnerable to different predators. Fortunately for the helpless chicks, the hen harrier is just passing by. Its objective is more focused on reaching other less salty waters and with a dense aquatic vegetation. Ondia, Salada de Zoria, and Dulce de Zoria make up the endorrheic complex of Espera. These lagoons are the furthest away from the Bahía de Cádiz Natural Park. Declared a special protection area for birds and a place of community interest, today it is one of the last areas for the breeding of the white-headed duck in Europe. The high ecological value, not only of these but all our lagoons, highlights the need to preserve and better understand the increasingly rare wetlands of the province of Cadiz. The protection offered and all the efforts of government administrations and conservation groups are just one more step on the long road to conservation, and it will not be enough without continuity and without the support of all of us. Many public infrastructures are available to citizens and visitors. Their proper use ensures convenient access to places of interest, reducing the impact to different habitats and allowing us to observe wildlife, causing the minimum of nuisance. Pathways, trails with overpasses to protect vegetation and bird observatories are accompanied by signs and information boards, where we can find out the crossing times, travelling distances, or species of flora and fauna that we can find in each season. The desire of all is that the Bahía de Cádiz Natural Park and our lagoons develop in a sustainable and environmentally friendly way. If Rafael Alberti could once again open his eyes to his beloved saline marsh, we would like him to be dazzled by the light and to the sound of the waves swaying in unison with his poetry. We hope that the values of these enclaves that generate life will never be lost, so that future generations can continue to enjoy these unique and different places of Andalucia. We'd love to, accompanied by the sound of birds, to keep watching sunsets reflected in the eternal waters that bathe some of the most important wetlands in Europe.